listening to the Go and Tell Gals podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Connolly. On each episode, I'll have a guest who will give us a peek into what it looks like for her to run on mission in her everyday life. Our prayer is that it leaves you encouraged and spurred on to go and tell the good news right where you're at. Friends, we have quite the treat today. Today's podcast guest is none other than my older sister, Katie Walters. I have obviously been learning about Jesus through her, through the way she lives, how she runs on mission, since she met Jesus and I met him very shortly after. I'm excited for you to get to learn from her today. Her life is full and wild and wonderful. She is the mother of 6 kids ranging 15 to about a year and a half old. And she's the wife of a pastor who is in charge of leading thousands and thousands of people. She also runs a small business called Francis and Benedict that helps equip and empower women in Togo, West Africa, and outfit women in America with really cute skirts while they do it. You are going to love learning from her and hearing all that she has to say, and I know that you're going to learn as much from her as I have been for years. I am overjoyed, thrilled, massively excited because today we have the best, and I can go ahead and tell you, the best podcast guest we'll ever have. We have my sister, my number one mentor, my most encourager about running on mission, Katie Walters. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. I feel like I need to set the tone for the listeners to let them know that I am currently wearing our Beyonce t-shirt.
Oh, yes.
I have on the ear pods that you bought me for my birthday. I have on the Kingdom Girl hat from All Good Things. Basically, you have made me. Oh, I'm just sitting here.
Stop.
Oh my gosh, we're the same person. So I'm so excited. It's gonna be so fun.
Right. But yes, this will also be interesting as a podcast because while Katie and I look very different, people do say our voices are really similar. So
this is true.
We may have to, maybe I should do a deeper tone so people know it's me when I'm talking. But truly, I'm so thankful you're here. I want you to just take a minute and tell everybody what your life looks like. I obviously know what your life looks like, but they don't. So particularly as it pertains to running on mission, a lot of people see the more public things that you do, and I want you to talk about those. But and I know that there's a lot more mission that goes on. So talk a little bit about that. Tell us what mission looks like, which I know is your whole life.
Yes, well, I hope it's a majority for sure of it. So I am a mama of 6, and my children are ages 15 to 15 months, basically. So I'll stair-stepped in there. I have 2 girls that are almost 14 and 15, and then 4 boys. And I am married to an incredible man of God, Josh Walters. He's a pastor at Seacoast Church here in Charleston, and I am a pastor too in my heart. No, I'm just kidding.
You are.
I am, for sure. I'm technically not on staff, but we definitely co-labor together.
Yes.
I always tell him that he joined my Young Life team when we were in college, and that I have been called to ministry and mission, before I met him and set apart for ministry. And so I've always really believed that, and that ministry and mission has just looked different and in different seasons. It started out, one of my most challenging seasons was when you were on staff with him in college. And you guys preached out back and forth every single week, and I stayed home with our 2 children on the way with number 3 and his secretary's kids.
Yeah.
And that was my mission. I remember, going to every single MOPS that there was around town and really trying to soak in the season of motherhood as my primary mission, as in what I was putting my hands to all day. And I would still say in this season of life that motherhood is my primary mission, and even homemaking.
Yeah.
I learned through different seasons of working and not working that Josh was never going to be gifted as the homemaker of our home. And he has so many different strengths. But that's one thing that God has just wired me to do. And so I try to always keep that in mind on mission, is that I want our house to be the most incredible place that fosters compassion and joy and kindness and, love for humanity and education and all those things that happens in the walls of my home. So that really is the first place of mission for me. And my primary mission field, even last night, I mean, this is a small example, but a girl who I disciple and mentor has been babysitting for us for a long time. She is in the middle of just the thick of nursing school and a ton of stress and anxiety. I'm so proud of her for all that she's accomplishing. But we just had a straight up, preaching right there in the kitchen last night. And so I don't ever neglect the sacred opportunities like that God's given me into people's lives. And most of those happen in the secret rooms and in the places that, are not on a platform. And so,
I want to pause really quickly. Yes. I want to talk about that season because you do mention it quite often and I love it. And
it's not that it's like a, traumatic thing for me. It's just decently traumatic.
Yeah. I mean, really genuinely, we could do a whole nother, and don't worry if you're already thinking like, there's so much I want to hear from Katie. We're going to have Katie on as many times as she'll come. We could do a whole session on hidden seasons, but the one thing I want to capture just in what you just said is one thing that I noticed about that season. So again, just to reiterate what Katie said, she has 6 kids during this particular season that she's referencing. Josh, her husband, and I were on staff at a church, and Katie attended the church and served at the church, but wasn't on staff and stayed home with her kids and somebody else's kids. And so she wasn't going on the trips we were going. She wasn't going to the events we were going on. But one thing that I want to note about that season is that I find that so many wildly impactful stories that I tell about you and about learning about vibrancy and abundance in relationship with God are from that season. And there are just so many moments where God taught me so much through you through those seasons. One, we were literally just talking about this morning, not even in relation to the podcast, but I tell this story all the time about the first time I walked in and saw Katie on her knees praying. And I thought people actually do that. People actually get on their knees and pray. That's what a wild and beautiful and vibrant relationship with God. I wish I could have that kind of relationship with God. And it took me a few years for the Lord to help me to see you can right now. And that was from that season. This is such a random memory, but I have this really strong memory of the first time I asked you why a certain family asked you to babysit more than they asked me to babysit. So we knew someone who had kids and I was like, why do they ask you to babysit and not me to babysit? And you said, because I do it for free because they're my friends. And I was like, oh, right. So I just want to pause and say we could do a whole nother interview on hidden seasons and what God's shown us, but I learned so much from you about mission and about abundance from that season, so you keep going from there.
Well, I totally agree. And I feel like just, for every single woman, as you're listening, hopefully this encourages and just confirms kind of the journey you've been on with God. But I think from the moment I met the Lord, I did love intimacy with him. I loved time with him. He had a lot of work to do, a lot of inner work to do on me. And also I wish we could have a whole nother podcast on the failures of all these seasons, because you guys know she talks about the best attributes and qualities of me, but it's worse than you could even imagine. I mean, I'm definitely the chief sinner here too. But throughout this journey of being with God, I feel like what those seasons taught me is who he created me to be and the gifts that he had placed inside of me and the things that actually lit me up. So for instance, when I first came to Christ, I think I remember telling you this, but I really thought the only way to live fully on mission for God eventually was to become Beth Moore. I mean, that was my goal, you know, because that's who I saw as fully walking in their gifts, teaching about God's word and having a relationship with him that other people wanted to know about, which those things I think are the beauty of wanting to live on mission, is that you do want to let people in on this amazing relationship and freedom that you have in Christ, but I think what he taught me in those hidden seasons were the things that actually lit me up, the things that I really deeply cared about, the things that I would do for free and the things that I would do when nobody was watching. And so those things have continued to fuel me this entire time. And so now I think some of what people can see on the outside the fruit of it. It's only come from those deep roots of me having to learn more about myself, who God made me to be, and the things that actually do kind of make me come alive. And so in that time, I remember that, you know, being a stay-at-home mom and learning about how to make a phone call to my senator, how to, you know, research things that I could do right in my own hometown, how to do summer to serve opportunities and go into neighborhoods. And it was in those seasons that I started to learn more about myself and the things and the people that God had made me to reach, you know?
Yeah. So give us a slice current day. What does mission look like? And again, I know the real life version, which I think is so much more beautiful than what most people get to see. So tell us, like, what an average day of using your hands, your feet, your time, your dollars, your words for his kingdom. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, I feel like, you know, number one, I just always want my yes on the table for him. So that continues to look differently. You know, my thing that he's called me to full time in mission and as my job right now is Francis and Benedict. And that's the nonprofit that we run like a business out of Togo, West Africa. And it's a fashion company, and I could talk about it for hours. It is such a gift to me. It is such a partnership with a work God's already doing. And so a lot of what I try to steward the best I can right now is what he's doing in that ministry. Yeah. And I try to lead it to the best of my ability, lead the women that are under it to the best of my ability, and really develop them, platforming them and kind of looking at what are their gifts and strengths and how can we best use those in Francis and Benedict. And so, you know, kind of the outward fruit of that mission is the fact that these women's lives in Togo are being changed in West Africa, but that's all actually happening because of Francis and Benedict. They're two people that live in Togo, West Africa, and they live on mission. And so they're the ones discipling these seamstresses. They're pouring into them. They're helping them accomplish goals. They have homes for street children, but that's really all their work. My job is just to resource that work in Togo. And then the real mission field of it for me is the women around me. We have 50 advocates right now. By the end of October, we have, you know, staff. And so my job is to kind of make sure these women are fully alive on the mission and the culture that God's called them to. Yeah. So that's Francis and Benedict. Then my job at the church is, again, like I feel like I'm a co-laborer with my husband. So this week, it looks like yesterday, all day we had all staff, which is where all of our campuses come into staff. And I had, you know, several meetings and things within that. Like I said, I'm not on staff technically, but I'm on staff, if you know what I mean. It's like a buy one, get one sometimes with those husbands in ministry. And I don't know that I won't ever be on staff again. It's just that right now God's called me to really focus my efforts on Francis and Benedict. So as a mom of 6, my baby is in preschool at the church every day until 1. My mother-in-law lives here in town and helps me sometimes with carpool, and I have childcare, you know, most days of the week. So I'm pretty much out of the home every day from like 9 to 2 or 3. And again, this is the season of, you know, you're hearing me 15 years into motherhood, 37 years old, with a mother-in-law who has just, you know, become more available to help, and us just have the resources to be able to support childcare more during the day. But it hasn't always looked like that. Yeah. And so I tried to ask God, what resources around me have you given me at this season to support what I feel called to? And if he doesn't have the resources around to help support that, it probably is not his timing, you know, because my life does still, honestly, even though it is full and I always want to live a full life on mission, you know, for him, it still feels easy and light and like things that I can carry, you know, that kind of like groove with Jesus. And so I know that he's called me to Francis and Benedict for such a time as this specifically, not 5 years ago, not 10 years ago, you know? Yeah.
So some things I want to fill in, because I have the very unique perspective of getting to do that, is that definitely you run Francis and Benedict with grace and vision and wisdom and discipleship. Some things I know you won't say about yourself is, we know in our family, my husband and I constantly like are blessed by it and smile at it, is that if you see Katie, who we call Ruby, I will say it does feel like very strange to be calling you Katie on this podcast. That's a whole nother podcast in and of itself, why we call you Ruby. But that's what we call her. But if we see Ruby around town, and my kids know, we expect her to have a handful of extra kids with her. So one way...
And Oreos.
And Oreos.
Yes. Kids will be like, where's Ruby? And Ruby cookies.
Yes. Yes, my kids for a long time when they were growing up didn't call Oreos Oreos. They called them Ruby cookies. But we know you're going to have a few extra kids. You are constantly serving other moms, trying to help even though you have 6 kids by yourself, you also constantly are trying to help other kids. You're constantly trying to take my kids and help me with them, even though you have 2 extra yourself. But that's one way that I love seeing you just take what you've been given, which is 2 hands and a heart to mother, and serve other people around you. And even your car is a missional choice. So a few years ago, you decided to get a 15-passenger van because you knew you wanted to be able to put extra people's kids in it. And so rather than getting a car that fits your family, or even like letting, your car dictate how many kids you would have in general, you said, like, we want more room. We want more room so we can keep serving other moms and the rest of our community. And that is one thing that constantly calls me up every day, just every time I see your car.
Oh my gosh, you are the best. Well, it's funny. I remember the day I got this car, and I was turning 35, and I showed up to meet you and Mom at the pool, and I had a scarf in my hair, and I was driving a 15-passenger van, and I had this distinct feeling to my toes, like, this is what I came for.
Wow.
Like, I was made for this.
I love it.
It's so funny. But honestly, I have to be truly, like, so vulnerable with that piece of it, because like I said, that journey I do feel like I have a spiritual call on my life towards motherhood and mothering, and not just my own children, but really with birthing new ideas, dreams, and helping to platform and launch other women into kind of their next. And that has been a joy to start to step into that and see a lot of freedom in that. But especially having you as my sister right beside me, the enemy could have and has before, but use that comparison game of, I know you guys all know Jess, but she has an incredible prophetic gifting. That's why all the content that she produces, you're like, oh my gosh, I feel like God was just saying this to me, or this is what he's trying to say to our generation, or how did she know how to put that into words? And it's because of the gifting and call he has on her life. And so as I've lived this story and constantly have been tempted and have compared to, wow, my mission doesn't feel as great or valuable or sexy as the next person's. And I know that can happen, for all of us as we look around, and instead of just looking up and asking God, what have you called me to? And what are the tools in my hand to live this life lightly and freely? When people start thinking of mother of 6, we actually, the other night, I haven't even told you this, but we just signed up again to get licensed to be foster parents. This is our 6th time getting licensed, and every time we get pregnant. So let's just pray that doesn't happen. Anyways, when people might think that or something, think I'm like so, patient or sane or have it all together, it's opposite. I'm like so ordinary and have so much that it doesn't look like other mothers around you, because I just can't do it all, and so I don't do it all in 1,000 ways, but there's ways that I can carry it lightly, because I feel like he's wired me for it. And so I just think that's the kind of key to mission, is this journey of discovering what has he made you to love. And that's even Frances and Benedict, the fact that I love fashion and I love skirts. And so, I don't love, yesterday we did all the photo shoots and everything, and you heard me call you like, oh my gosh, I can't keep doing this marketing and all this stuff. But I do love fashion. I love, women and that kind of thing. And so that is true of every single woman. There's different things, desires in their heart that God has planted there for a reason.
Absolutely. So, okay, well, you've said such good things, and I want y'all to know I'm just furiously taking notes of things I want to have Katie back on to talk about, but we've talked about a little bit this sense that, like, you do have to go with where the abundance is for you. You do have to go with where the gifting is for you and where the overflow is, and feel great about that. I would say you're so right on, even about motherhood and the call you feel towards mothering. I love my kids. I love my kids. That is not an area of abundance for me. And 4 kids feels like absolutely my capacity. But I can like be so in awe of the Lord in you, where he's given you overflow and abundance and joy and excitement there. And it's so important, right, that I not like stifle that in you, that I say like, yeah, you want to sign up to be a foster mom? You absolutely should. And this is what I tell Katie anytime she gets pregnant or even thinks about having another baby. There's nothing in me that like limits her capacity based on my capacity. I'm the first one to tell her, just because I've learned, you know, the hard way doing it wrong, but I'm the first one to tell her, you should have more kids. You are so good at it.
It's very true. It only goes awry when she tells me I should cut bangs, which she does, and I should get a second dog, which she also did. So I'm still trying to forgive her for that.
I never want to be the no person in your life. I always want to be the one saying like, you got this.
Definitely are the yes person.
I am 100% the yes person. But if I put my capacity, my limited capacity on her and was like, oh, 6, you can't do any more. Like, how much would I be limiting God's abundance for her? Yeah. And so I just think we've learned that the hard way. And now it's one like very beautiful part about our relationship, that we get to see where there are those areas of abundance and overflow and really make each other press in towards them.
Yes.
But let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about the hard parts, because our hard parts are different too. And sometimes that's wildly encouraging. And so if you could just share one difficult part of this season, this slice of ministry, and somehow how God's meeting you in that. Tell us what it's looked like for him to provide in it, for him to comfort you in it, for him to grow you in it.
So I do believe that there needs to be sacrifice in all serving and potentially even suffering. It's how we relate to the guy that we're following after, Jesus. And we're really following him to a point of death. And so I do believe there needs to be sacrifice and selflessness and dying to self. So there are definitely those components to my everyday life too. I don't know. I could go on about them, but I feel like everybody has their own personal areas of that in whatever they're called to. So the things about them for me, though, is they truly do drive my intimacy. And when I go to the Lord about them, the first thing that happens is that my mission field specifically, gives me the perspective to endure those different sacrifices and suffering. So, for instance, with Francis Benedict, we're in Togo, West Africa, one of the poorest countries in the world. And the women there, when I say it's a partnership and they affect and inspire me, it's because I cannot do anything without thinking about them, thinking about the suffering they endure, the obstacles they overcome, the challenges that they push through. And so that actually ends up bringing me a lot of strength and a lot of freedom. You know, have you ever heard the thing where the royal family is always like, oh, it's so hard to be in the royal family. You can't even imagine. And this guy's like, you know what's hard? Overdraft is hard. Speaking of overdraft is what's hard. Let's just bring perspective into the situation. You know, I do not believe that, you know, we're called to things that don't involve sacrifice and suffering, but I do believe that God wants us to you know, let those things draw us to him. And then he should be able to bring us the fuel, the perspective, the energy needed to still enjoy the life that he's called us to. Yeah. So that would be my kind of challenge point for any woman who is on mission, especially if you're on it alone or you feel like it is hard for you to get that perspective. Just the things that you say, Jess, about like, we get to do this. Yeah. I don't feel like you live a life full of joy on mission without the right team, without the right women around you kind of telling you, encouraging you and spurring you on and saying, you're strong enough for this. And when you're not, that is why you actually have the Holy Spirit living inside of you. You have a comforter, you have a provider, you know, and you don't need to chase after the things that the world tells you that you need to chase after. And so I have just found like such an incredibly not just kind God, patient God, but generous God for me. And that he really does provide me with what I need, not just with the people around me to help me accomplish the goals. And that means help with my children, help with my home, help with, you know, the logistics of life, help with supporting other women. But he also like legit provides for me, you know, in provision and physical provision, because the mission that I've been called to doesn't come with a lot of money. I guess that's the way to say it, is I've really have like worked for free a lot of my adult life. Yeah. And part of the struggle with that is the fact that I have a really expensive master's degree that I'm still paying for. But God has continued to really, really be so generous with me and my family. And I just can't thank him enough for that. So I don't know. That's a long answer.
Good.
Sorry.
No, that's really great. That's good. That's a great answer. Okay. I've genuinely made a list of all the things I want you to come back on and talk about. And so let's treat this as an introduction of Katie Walters to the Go and Tell Gals podcast. But you guys are going to be hearing from her so much more often. I want to end our time together with just a few little spitfire questions. People get to know you a little bit better. You know, again, I already get to know all of these things. And some of them I also know are really interesting answers. So I want you to expound if they're not quick answers. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Go. First one I didn't tell you I'm going to ask you is, what's your Enneagram number? People need to know.
Oh, it's a 7 with an 8 wing, which my sister sometimes thinks that I have a 6 wing.
I can see both, but I definitely see a strong 8 too.
There are times where I actually think I'm an 8. It's just you're such an 88. That, like you're such a strong 8 that I actually look like not an 8.
Yeah.
But I definitely think, you know, a 7 is like mine. I mean, there's probably no doubt.
Yeah, our mom is not an 8, but we often laugh that our control issues drove Katie to be a 7 because we're both very controlling and demanding, and that we probably drove her to be like, fun, have fun, let's have fun, everybody chill out. Everybody calm down. Okay, that's your 7, 8. Sometimes I see some 6. Also, I think I see you as a 6 because you're so loyal. So I
exactly. Well, she sees me as a 6 because if somebody comes after her, I will cut them. And I love everyone until they don't love Jess, and then I would, hunt them down.
You do not. When I tell people that you are like Snow White and Jesus combined, I am 100% not kidding. She is the nicest person you will ever meet. But if you cross me,
if you cross my sister,
or our other sister, you are just done.
It's very true. I truly think the Hunger Games was all about Prim. I think that it ended wrong. Like the whole thing was all about Prim, and that's how I feel about my world. I'm like, it's all honestly about Jess.
You are actually crazy. You are actually crazy. It was definitely about Katniss, and you're obviously the Katniss.
Obviously not. I'm the grandma.
You are not the grandma. I knew you were going to say that. Okay. Okay. Spitfire questions. That's your Enneagram number. Now, I'm going to make you say a little bit more, but what book are you currently reading?
Oh, gosh. Okay. Currently, I'm reading Miles McPherson's Third Option. It's an incredible book. It just came out. It's about, racial diversity and unity, and it's really, really good. Okay. But,
Yes. So the fact question is, how many books have you read this year?
This year, I have read 42 books.
Right.
But read is the understatement of the year. I have listened to on Audible.
Yes.
I love audiobooks. I'm mildly obsessed with Audible. And Jessie, Jess, I'm sorry. So she will literally mention a book. She'll be on like page 1.
Yeah.
And she'll post about it, or, I'll see something. And literally the next time I see her, I'm like, okay, let's talk about that book. And she's like, what?
I was I kind of stopped reading it after that chapter.
Like, I barely even read that book.
Or I'll mention I'm reading it the day before, and the next day I'll say like, yeah, I want to tell you more about that book I read, and she'll say like, oh, I finished it. I already listened to it. And so I want to say, first of all, don't ever believe the lie that you don't have time to consume more wisdom, because you have 6 kids, run a business, constantly have people in your home, have a husband with a very demanding job, and you yourself have a very demanding job, and you run on mission, and you've read
live in the car.
Yes,
that's how the audiobooks happen.
Yeah.
Because some of you moms really, you feel terrible and lazy and like maybe dumb. That's how I felt my whole life, because my mom and sister are like avid rapid readers. Like they look at a page and it will be read. And I am not a fast reader like that. And if I sit down for long enough to like stare at a book before I go to sleep, I will be asleep, dead asleep. So audiobooks have like changed my life. I think I'm just entering the new world of reading for the first time.
I am blessed by it, and it calls me up. And I want to tell you too, it like fights also a lie that like you can't be loving and kind and also very smart, because I always feel like I have to come up behind you and tell people just what a genius you are. And genuinely, Katie is one of the most book smart people I know. You know, she went through her master's program nursing a baby during class every night and still graduated at the top of her class. Like, so I just want to like say, I love that you're such a learner and such a reader, because it really frees women up to know, number one, I mean, reading and consuming books is just so humble. Saying there is more I can learn here, it is beautiful, and that you want to know, that you want to gather more wisdom, I just think is great. So it can always be a reading season. I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks God for audiobooks. Okay, what's your coffee order?
Oh, you know.
I know.
Same as you.
They
Venti
don't know.
Pike.
Venti Pike place.
Venti Pike, nothing black. I like my coffee strong and black.
You like the coffee black. We may be the only two people in America who prefer Starbucks coffee. That's not cool anymore.
Is very true.
People like fancy hipster coffee, and you and I give us the strong, black, burnt taste of Starbucks any day.
It's one of the qualities I just don't love about myself. But I'm telling you, hipster coffee, it just reminds me of a gas station. I cannot get past it.
Same.
And maybe one day.
Okay, what's a secret talent you have or that you wish you had?
Okay, so I wish I had talent. I will say that.
Oh, I can't even.
I need to be honest with all the people, is that if I had talent, there's just people that God, I really think he's in charge, but he just dump trucks it out, and then people get sprinkled, you know? And
well, again, this is a helpful interview because I know the backstory. So let's go ahead and say that the contest that you can win any day, hands down, hula hooping.
Oh, this is true.
You have got
definitely
hips that do not lie.
I actually could hula hoop. I should be really proud of that. Yeah. But honestly, friends, that Jess, you got to be truth. I mean, that's like my only one. I'm not. So 8 Enneagram people. They really are aware of their body. Like they can wink. They know body parts. I cannot move anything in my body. Like it rejects me. I don't know how to wink. I don't know how to wiggle my ears.
I'm honestly the same as it. Like it doesn't matter that I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. Same. I think you and I are both like pretty good dancers until we're around like really good dancers, and then we're like, we're like moms. Okay, but you were on the dance team in college. I mean, like a major college dance team. You were on it.
Thankfully, Jessie went to the the tryouts with me. Yeah. And she saw firsthand that it was a miracle that I got on that dance team. It was only because God had a plan for my husband.
It was incredible.
That was what happened.
It was incredible. I think you're a great dancer. I just want to affirm.
Thank you.
Okay, but you are like a miraculous hula hooper.
I will take it. I think I am pretty good.
Yeah, she can hula hoop for like 40 minutes straight.
Yeah,
it's impressive.
It's true. It's very true.
Favorite lipstick? Do you have a favorite? I don't think I know this.
I do. I mean, my go-to red is Red Revival by Maybelline. I only know that because I've answered it so many times on Instagram. But I really do like that one. But I just started trying the one that you used the other day, and I bought it.
Yeah.
Again,
which one is
because
that?
Because I am your pawn. I do what you tell me to do.
Which one is that?
It's that one that has the lip plumping thing in it. It's like pinkish.
Yes. Okay, we'll put that in the show notes. Yeah.
Okay, do that. It's Revlon.
Yes, it does have a lip plumping agent in it.
It's actually really good, and I did that because I've been wearing red lipstick. You know this for like 8 years or something. I was looking back on pictures from like a long time ago, and I was like, is there ever, I guess this is a great question for you and the listeners. Is that something that, is like a decade long okay thing. Red lipstick.
Yeah, I think it's it's iconic.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
just let me know if you need to change that.
This is just our very first interview with Katie Walters. We're going to have her back just a million more times. Hey,
please.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy life to just share and be honest and give people a real look into what's going on.
Thank you for having me. I am so grateful. And I will have to say that I do feel like I've sacrificed a little bit because I've been sitting in my car because you informed me that was too loud and there's no air conditioning, so I can't turn my car on. So I just want to tell your listeners that I really love you guys. I'm pouring sweat and I'm very happy to come back next time. I will do it from my house.
Yes, a wise woman once told me that that sacrifice leads to intimacy with God. So I pray that you are blessed richly with His presence.
I have less in my flesh when I'm leaving this podcast, so that is very good.
Okay, all right.
Less of me, more of him.
Okay.
Okay, I love you.
Thank you for being on.
Okay, all right, bye.
Friends, I hope you loved that interview with my sister, my friend, Katie Walters. Here's what I'm left with after talking about that with her. I'm thinking about hidden seasons. I'm thinking about great seasons. I'm thinking about how we press in and press through when mission is hard, when life is hard, when life is mundane. And I'm encouraged by 2 Corinthians 9:8 that says, "And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work." I pray that whatever kind of season you're in right now, whether it is beautiful and all that you dreamed of, or whether it is brutal and everything that you feared, I pray that you sense God near. I pray you sense a possibility of mission. I pray that you have eyes to see and ears to hear those around you who need to hear about His love, who need to hear your story, who need to experience Him through your presence. I love you. I hope you have an incredible day. Go and tell the good news.